Scott Ritter, once an eminent United Nations weapons inspector and a former Marine Corps intelligence officer, has developed into a seer. He's developed into a soldier scholar of some global significance. And I'm glad to say he always answers our call. Scott Ritter, welcome to the show. Before we get on to what's probably the bigger in Ukraine, I wanted to ask you about this new missile that Iran has unveiled. Well, characteristically, it's still partially veiled, but its main attributes seem to be well enough known amongst military people around the globe. Is it a game changer in your view?
We already know that the Iranians had established missile superiority over the Israeli integrated anti-ballistic missile defense shield. That was proven during the 12-day conflict between Israel and Iran. What Iran is doing now is fielding even more advanced systems that are designed specifically to defeat the Israeli ballistic missile defense shield. Understand this, the Israeli ballistic missile defense shield isn't getting any better. There are no new weapons coming out. It is what it is. The Iranian ballistic missile attack capability is getting better by orders of magnitude. So if there is a renewed conflict between Israel and Iran, understand this, the Israeli missile defense shield will be overwhelmed immediately, and the consequences to Israel will be devastating.
And is there any possibility in those circumstances that before anything changes, that Iran might take the initiative? After all, Israeli commanders and heads of the government are daily declaring that they're going to attack Iran. That gives a legal basis for self-defense, does it not?
I'm not a international lawyer, and I don't play one on TV, but my understanding of international law and the concept of preemptive self-defense under Article 51, established by legal precedent that's founded in the United States Supreme Court, yes, gives Iran the ability to preempt any Israeli attack. And if the Israelis are announcing it, if they're officials who are directly related to the decision-making necessary to launch a strike are talking about this, Iran has every right under international law to preempt that attack. Iran historically has avoided this kind of action, and I don't know if Iran would do this, but Iran does have the right to do it.
And the reports of unconventional weapons overnight in Jabalia, a camp I know well, are widespread. But of course, we lack the ability to investigate. There are no journalists left in Gaza, virtually none, and there are no officials who could investigate it. But very widespread reports, for the first time I may add, overnight, that chemical weapons may have been used in the munitions. Last night, you and I are both familiar with the use of unconventional weapons, depleted uranium in particular, in Iraq. Is there any possibility that given the toughness of the fight in Gaza, that Israel may be resorting to unconventional weapons like that?
There's no doubt in my mind that Israel is capable of using these weapons. They possess these weapons. And there's also no doubt in my mind that the battlefield reality that exists in Gaza leaves Israel almost no choice but to employ these weapons if they are to have any chance of defeating a Hamas opponent who has buried themselves underground. And I think the purpose of these weapons is to deploy something that can penetrate underground and asphyxiate or otherwise neutralize the enemy. But of course, this means that civilians above the ground will be impacted. Israel doesn't care. They're committing an ongoing genocide of unprecedented magnitude in the modern age, the starvation, the deliberate targeting of women and children. So no one should be shocked that Israel would seek to embrace, what is in effect a war crime, because they're committing a war crime. Their very existence is a war crime nowadays.
Now, you worked for the UN. Can the UN do anything at all about this, or indeed other international flashpoints that might lead to the world to conflagration. I mean, it feels to me like the League of Nations circa 1936. They declared a famine, but they have no means of doing anything about it. Is the UN finished, Scott?
Unless it gets fixed, it's finished. What Gaza is doing is driving a stake through the heart of the United Nations as an effective um, uh, vehicle for guaranteeing the rights of peoples and nations around the world against violations of their rights, against the violations of international law. In order to have to intervene effectively, you would need a Chapter 7 resolution by the Security Council. And right now, the Security Council, because of the United States, is incapable of producing, a document, a resolution that would authorize meaningful intervention. For instance, it took a resolution 687 back in 1991 to authorize the work that I did in Iraq as a weapons inspector. A Chapter 7 resolution backed up by the force of the international community. You would need something similar to be effective in Israel, but the United States will never let that happen. And so long as the United States continues to wield its veto in defense of this genocidal regime in Israel, then the United Nations is all but dead.
Now, Scott, I posed a question, a dichotomy really, in my monologue. And my dilemma is this. I felt, I may have egg on my face, I might be entirely wrong, that Donald Trump actually did want to bring the Ukraine war to an end. If I was right, he clearly lacks either the motivation or the political strength to actually carry that over the line. But equally it's possible that I was wrong and that the whole Alaska affair was just theatre. It had no meaning at all. It may be a false dichotomy, and you may have other contradictions to bring up, but the Ukraine war ain't coming to an end, is it?
The Ukraine war will not come to an end on terms that will be acceptable to either Ukraine or Europe. This is absolutely sure. If the war is going to end, it's going to come on terms that will be dictated by Russia. Russia has indicated a willingness to work with the United States on the periphery to create cosmetic, political concessions. But on the core issues that are confronted or raised by this conflict, Russia will not yield on any of these issues. And it's clear to anybody who studies Russia, who's been to Russia, who's talked to the Russians, what this case is. And this is known by Donald Trump. I believe he was sincere in Alaska. I do believe that he is seeking a peace. But I also recognize the reality that Donald Trump is surrounded by people who do not want peace. There is a political reality in the United States that the opponents of Russia, the opponents of peace, are betraying this president as he speaks, to include some of the people that he brought with him to Alaska. They do not want peace. And so the president has to play political games. He has a very critical midterm election coming up that if he doesn't carry, if his party doesn't carry and sustain control of the House and the Senate, his term is over, finished. He won't get anything done that he wants because he'll be stymied by Congress. And so this president has to say things and posture and do things that, people like you and I who are hoping for decisive action on the part of the president will be disappointed in this. But I believe you're going to ask a question about the missiles, and so I'm going to preempt your question and just to show this as a case study. The missile in question, the ERAM, Advanced Extended Range Attack Missile or something, it's a missile that was created in 2023, 2024, specifically for Ukraine by the United States Air Force. Created means conceptualized. They had 2 years to begin production. The missile has not gone into serial production yet. It's still a theory, a concept. Trump can speak of selling 3,600 and some odd missiles to Ukraine. These missiles don't exist. They haven't been built yet. The maximum production capacity for the ERAM is 1,000 missiles per year. They have to begin serial production. So What Trump has done is said in 6 weeks, we will begin delivery of a system. That means that we might be talking about 5, 6, 7, 10, no more, because they don't exist. They have to be built. This is a game being played by Trump that says, look, Russia, well, he's actually not talking to the Russians. He's talking to his political opponents, saying, I'm willing to give Ukraine the ability to defend themselves. We're going to provide these weapons, but it's a joke. These weapons don't exist. They have yet to be produced. And when they are produced, they won't be produced in numbers sufficient to tilt the balance. And the United States maintains a veto over how Ukraine can use these. So you give Ukraine weapons, but then you say you can't use them because Trump understands the moment the United States greenlights the use of these weapons, we become an active participant in the conflict. And any chance of having a negotiated settlement with Russia is out the window. And that would be a political disaster for Donald Trump in the lead up to a midterm election where his base believed him when he said he will stop this war in Ukraine. And if Donald Trump is seen instead of becoming an active participant in this conflict, then that's it for him politically. So I think this is just one big smoke and mirrors thing done by a president who you rightly have said is somewhat weak when it comes to standing up to his opponents. This is a time for the president to show strength, to tell Europe to pound sand, to tell Zelensky to bend the knee or die. This isn't a time to play stupid games, but unfortunately, this is America, and all politicians of both stripes do is play stupid games.
On the subject of Europe, I felt it was a bad idea to allow the seven dwarfs to show up. It was bound to at least inhibit Trump's ability to force Zelensky into the concessions which would be necessary. And on that, I think I proved right, because although the photo optics of these dwarves sitting there in front of the headmaster on one level looked bad for Europe, Europe is getting its way. They are continuing to prolong this war, even though they are not, at least until now, shouldering most of the financial burden and don't have an army, navy and air force between all of them. The British, the French, the Dutch, the Danish and the rest could not dream to get into a shooting war with Russia. They want America to do that for them.
100%. But I have a different perspective on this. First of all, Russia is not afraid to continue this war because it's a war that Russia is winning decisively. Europe is unable to alter this reality whatsoever. Moreover, these seven dwarves, as you call them, that's kind. It's sort of an insult to dwarves. What did they get? They wanted to get the United States to agree to Article 5, that's a reference to the NATO Charter, a collective defense article. An attack against one is an attack against all. I'm frozen, I think. I don't know if you can see me, so I'll wait until I unfreeze.
I can still hear you, Scott. I can still hear you.
Okay, I think we're back. Article 5 protection, that's what they wanted. NATO, Article 5 protection. They're not getting it. Donald Trump basically told them no. The United States will not support this. And without American support, there is no Article 5. There is nothing. And nobody in Europe can change this. So there's a lot of talk about something. Nothing happened. Moreover, the humiliation they had to feel as Donald Trump stopped their discussions to call Vladimir Putin. It proves that Donald Trump puts more credence in the opinion of the Russian leader than he does of the seven dwarves. They left humiliated. But again, the idea that Europe is extending this conflict, Russia doesn't care. 1.7 million dead Ukrainian soldiers, we now know. 625,000 of them have died this year. This is just August. The kill ratio is going up exponentially every month. If the Ukrainians want to lose the totality of their manpower on behalf of a discredited European continent, so be it. The Russians don't care. They're going to win this war no matter what. And that's a reality that I think Donald Trump has recognized. He has to play stupid political games with his American backstabbers, with the people who continue to oppose peace. But ultimately, Donald Trump, the proof is clear. Donald Trump went into Alaska threatening Vladimir Putin. If you don't agree to a ceasefire right from the start, I'm out of there and all hell is going to break loose. But after a short meeting with Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump said, nope, no ceasefire. We're looking for a comprehensive solution to the root causes of the conflict. That's Russia's position. This proves we know who's calling the shots here. And it's not Donald Trump, and it certainly isn't the Seven Dwarfs.
Finally, Scott, as it happens, I know Venezuela rather well. Is it seriously to be expected that as the ultimate diversion, the peace president is going to invade Venezuela? Because I think I can definitively promise no good would come out of that for the United States.
Look, I'm a former Marine, and I have the highest respect for the professionalism of my fellow Marines today. 4,000 Marines are not going to invade Venezuela. They're there as a demonstration of force. That's it. They may make, I don't know what the president's planning, but to go into a nation the size of Venezuela with a military as well trained as the Venezuelan military, with a population ready to rise up and defend Venezuela, you would have to come in with forces that number in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions. And we simply don't have the force. So this is Marco Rubio's muscle flexing, trying to put pressure on Venezuela to create a diversion. Marco Rubio doesn't believe in Ukraine. Meaning he doesn't believe in making peace in Ukraine, and he's losing that conflict. So what Marco Rubio is doing is, starting to talk about what he does care about, which has always been intervention into Latin America, into South America. He's flexing muscles, though, that the United States doesn't possess. The United States doesn't have sufficient military power right now to project any meaningful military force into Venezuela. We've lost Colombia. That used to be a place where we could talk about, staging military force. But Colombia and Venezuela now are on the same page, talking about joint defense. This is just ridiculous flexing on the part of Marco Rubio, and it'll lead to yet more embarrassment for the Trump administration.
And is he out the woods on Epstein, but maybe not? What do you think?
I don't believe so. I can't claim to know everything about the Epstein case. I've spoken to Ryan Dawson, who's very well informed on this matter. I believe that that there is substance to these allegations. Whether or not that sticks to Donald Trump, I don't know. You know, everything about this is suspicious. And the notion, when you see people going overboard, as they did, the Department of Justice interview with Ghislaine Maxwell in prison, where, basically in order to get herself, cozy accommodations and position herself for a pardon, she said, oh, no, Donald Trump's a pure gentleman, and he's doing this, he's doing that, he's done nothing wrong. The more they say that, the more it becomes clear in my mind that where there's smoke, there's fire. I don't think he's out of the water yet. And as you alluded to in your monologue, what happened in Las Vegas is a disgrace. And again, the influence Israel has on the United States of America is absolute, and it's disgusting. And I think that the Epstein files, the Epstein case, when it's finally released, because notice she said, oh, no, there's no connection between Israeli intelligence and Epstein. That means there is a connection between Israeli intelligence and Epstein. And this is problematic for the United States on very many levels.
And very finally, should we shed a tear for poor John Bolton?
This is a tough one for me because I despise him as a human being. I despise him as a man. I despise his policies. I despise everything about him. But I do live in the United States of America where free speech is absolute. And I think it's incumbent that we ensure that what is happening here is about a genuine threat to the national security of the United States, which may exist. I need to see the affidavit of probable cause, and not simply the Trump administration doing what the Biden administration did to me. Send FBI agents into the home of somebody that they disagree with. I disagree with John Bolton, but I defend his right to say whatever he has to say. I don't want him silenced. Let him speak, and then I'll put out better ideas and crush him in the battlefield of ideas. So I'm holding off until I see more about this. I'm concerned about the potential weaponization of the U.S. law enforcement to silence the opponents of President Trump.